All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, and today I'm back with another video here. So today, I wanted to break down the month of January and basically where I feel on the Flyers at this point, because there's obviously been a lot of talk of what everybody thinks that this team really is. I've never thought that this team was a Bedard team. I've said that. I'm on record saying it. I never thought that they were actually that bad. I thought a lot of people underrated the talent that the Flyers have, and I think you're seeing it. I think you're definitely seeing a mix of a lot of people. I think were wrong about this team because honestly, like just look at it. There are games where they don't necessarily match up to the better opponent. And we see that, right? Games against Toronto, games against, Boston, right? There are games where the Flyers can play really well and games where they can play really bad. And it happens. I don't think they're there yet, and they're not. But I will say, I don't think they were as bad as everybody made it out to be, and I think they're proving that. I think John Tortorella, Bradshaw, Rocky Thompson, they've all had everybody's hand has been on this. It's not just one guy. It's not just Torts. It's everybody. Everybody has worked this out, and it's been working. I think the overall structure and the way that this team is playing, it's working. I think defensively they've been good. Obviously, they block a lot of shots, and the goaltending has worked out. And obviously, I'll get into the numbers and break everything down in a second. But for where this team is at right now, and I'll talk about some specific guys, pretty much the entire roster up until this point. I've really liked where this team has just basically what they've become. I think they're turning into a more competitive team, and the games are watchable. The games are enjoyable. I've had a lot of fun this season watching this because, again, you don't really know what's going to happen every night. There are different moments where, again, they don't play as great, but for the overall month of January, coming off of a December where they went 6-7-2, they didn't have the best month, and they had some wins. Obviously, beating the Devils on the road, and they had some really good, overall good performances in net, but for the month of January and really coming out of Christmas, this team has really just been on a different level. So they end obviously, before going into Christmas, they had those two games, Toronto and Carolina. They were, a back to back on the road, and fell short in both of them by a goal, but we're in the game and we're at least competitive, and actually almost came back and won both of them. And plays late at the end, they just don't get the tying goal, and they go into Christmas break on a 2-game losing streak. Well, then they came out of the losing streak and out of Christmas break just with like a bang. Like, they looked so good, and they ended up beating San Jose in overtime 4-3. They go into Los Angeles on New Year's Eve. They get a late goal from Noah Cates shorthanded. They win that game. Then they go into Anaheim. They steamroll through the Ducks 4-1, and then they beat Arizona. Those are all teams that they should beat, probably outside of LA, who you're thinking, the Kings at the time were still up there in the standings. They are up until this point. They're one of the best teams in the Pacific, and LA is a good team, and we saw that. The Flyers played them recently and ended up losing in overtime too. So that was one thing, and just really that month and that trip seemed like it really bonded the team. They finished the month of January 8-4-2, had some really big wins, beating a good chunk of teams that you wouldn't really expect them to beat. They beat Anaheim twice, Arizona, Buffalo, Washington, Detroit, and Winnipeg. And some of the other games that they lost were definitely winnable. You could have beat, or really you should have beat Chicago. You could have beat LA. You could have beat Minnesota. Both those games went either way, right? The two overtime losses. So maybe they could have been better. They had, again, really good goaltending. Two shutouts: Urson against Buffalo, Hart against Winnipeg. Hart was fantastic against the Red Wings in a 2-1 win. Urson had some really big moments. He was great in Anaheim in the 4-1 win on January 2nd. Should have had a shutout. Ducks scored with like 30 seconds left to end that bid for him. But even still, 44 goals scored for them, 37 against. Hayes and Konechny with hat tricks each. Obviously, Hayes will be representing the Flyers at the All-Star game. And the losses, if you're looking at it this way, it's like You lost to Toronto, Boston, Chicago, Winnipeg, LA, and Minnesota. And LA and Minnesota, they could have won either way. Same thing with Winnipeg, really. Should have beat Chicago. It was just kind of a dud. And the other thing, too, is you had a lot of games in this small window of travel and going from here and there. And just looking at the schedule, right? I mean, you went Anaheim, came home off 2 days, play home against Arizona, off 2 days, play a back to back, which was the Buffalo game was a scheduled game that got added earlier. It was supposed to be in like March, and it got added because there was a snowstorm. So the Flyers then, instead of having 2 days off into a home and home against the Capitals, they then went to Buffalo and had a really good dominant first period, went up 3-0, and then won that game. And Buffalo at the time was, I believe they were tied with Boston for goals for in the league. They were like right there neck and neck with the Bruins just in goals. So you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, you have Toronto and then you have Buffalo and then you got a home and home against Washington, then you got Boston. You're like, oh my god. But that was the thing. They used that to their advantage, and they again a lot of games at a small window, and just a lot of 4 game weeks, 3 4 game weeks just to end the month. And that's a lot, especially with travel and going on the road. And 2 games home against Anaheim, Chicago, go to Detroit, come home the next night and play the Jets, then home, and then you're Minnesota and Winnipeg again. It was a lot of travel in a small period of time, and the Flyers did pretty good at it. And again, a couple months ago, you're looking at a home and home against the Capitals. Who would have thought that? And the Flyers handled them pretty well. The only really bad games, Boston and Toronto, should have beat the Jets the first time around, and then LA and Minnesota couldn't win any other way. And same thing with Chicago too. Probably should have won that game. But again, really good goaltending. Defensively, I thought they were good. I mean, look, I've talked about Ristolainen. I think he's really turned it around. I think the coaching staff, especially Shaw, has done a really good job with Risto. His positioning is better. His stick work is better. He doesn't take himself out of the play with a hit. He's actually been very good on the penalty kill, and the penalty kill's been very good too. I'll talk about that in a minute. I think Kim York has done a really good job as well, just moving the puck up the ice. He makes very simple plays, and he's just a very mobile defenseman that can skate, and he really uses that to his advantage. I've liked the Provorov and York pairing. Again, they went with the same lines for a good chunk of a month, really from December 20th and on up until the last game on Saturday against the Jets. They had the same lines. Van Riemsdyk, Frost, Tippett, Farabee, Cates, Konechny, Hayes, Lawton, Allison, Delorier, Brown, McEwen. They basically kept those lines together. The only reason they changed was because there was 2 injuries in the game against Minnesota. Allison with the block shot, McEwen with the fight, and McEwen obviously going to be out for a couple weeks because of the jaw injury. But even still, there was a lot of things that were kind of going on with this team, and they kept it together. And they go into last night's Saturday's game against the Jets, and they end up just going right through them. I mean, the Jets had some push and things like that, but they really just kept it sound. Like, it wasn't like, it didn't seem like the Jets had a lot of pressure. They didn't play their best game either, but the Flyers definitely didn't, it wasn't like that was the reason the Flyers won. The Flyers took it to them, and, they got some big goals. And again, they had a lot of big moments in this month. Obviously, the hat tricks were huge. You had some big moments from guys like Konechny, even guys like Tippett, Frost, Noah Cates, obviously, having a couple big goals as well. Wade Allison stepped in, and he had a handful of goals in this month. Kiefer Bellows comes in for the first time on Saturday, and he scores. Like, everybody has been stepping up. Everybody's been contributing, and just offensively, it's been kind of all around. The power plays obviously still has their struggle. They were 17% for the month, 22nd in the league. The penalty kill, though, 86.3%, 7th in the NHL for the month of January. And again, just a lot of good things in the month. And if you're just looking at these stats, right? Konechny leads the team with 49 points in 45 games, 24 goals, 25 assists. Hayes, who is their all-star representative, second in points, 15 goals, 30 assists, 45 points in 50 games. D'Angelo with 9 goals, 21 assists, and 30 points. And that's in 46 games played, like I said. 29 points for Lawton in 47 games. He's going to pass his career totals in points. He had 32 points in 2018-19 and 82 games played. He'll be passing that easily. Owen Tippett who, again, and these next four guys are guys that you want to see get points. Owen Tippett with 28 points, Morgan Frost 25 points, Joel Farabee 25 points, Noah Cates 22 points. All of those guys are on like a 40 to 45 point pace. That's what you want. That is exactly what you want. You have 31 games left. Owen Tippett looks like he's going to get at least 20 goals this season. Morgan Frost around a 45 point pace, 40 to 45. Farabee, same thing, 40 to 45. And obviously he's coming off of the shoulder injury and everything. And, one thing with Farabee, I'd like to see him shoot more. He only has 90 shots through 51 games, and he's like shooting at like a 10% shooting percentage. Like it's not like last year he was shooting at 14. So he's down in his shooting percentage too. Noah Cates is just so good defensively. Offensively, it's getting there. Obviously, scoring those 2 goals as well, and he's just in the right area all the time. I like the offense. I've liked the way the lines have looked. As for Tippett, and even Frost, Tippett's shown legit improvement. He's been same thing with Frost too. They've been generating offensively. Both of them have gotten power play time. Like, it's been working. The power play, it's struggled a little bit. There's been some moments with the power play where you'd like to legit see different things happening with that. It hasn't been the best power play for most of it. The penalty kill's been really good. The goaltending defensively, it's just been really good for this team to see, because in the last handful of years you haven't seen that. And for right now, you had some big games from Urson, big games from Hart. Just the offense alone was really good for this team. They scored a good chunk of goals, and again, you got goals from everybody. That's what you want to see. And again, for what it is, you are seeing legit improvement. I mean, this isn't like a one and done thing. This is over a month span where you're seeing this stuff, and everybody has their thoughts about this team. But you can't deny that you haven't seen legit improvement, because you have. I mean, you're seeing it night in and night out that there are different things that obviously need to be better. It's not perfect, right? Because there's games where you're not going to be perfect throughout an 82-game season anyway. But still, to look at this month and look at what the team has done, and certain guys are stepping up and they're getting goals really from everybody, and defensively they've been pretty good, and certain guys have just completely turned around their game. They're getting goaltending, everything else. There's a lot to like about what the Flyers are building here. There really is, and it's been fun to watch. I mean, for what it is, and the games are enjoyable every night. I've had a good time watching it, so hey, it is what it is. And for right now, the Flyers are playing some good hockey, so we'll see how it continues throughout the All-Star break. Obviously, Kevin Hayes will be representing the Flyers there. Again, thanks everybody so much for listening to this video, watching this video, whatever you're doing with that. Again, appreciate all the support as always. Hit that subscribe button down below if you enjoyed this video. Make sure to check out the podcast episode from Friday with Nick McElwain and Craig Berube. All that stuff, check all that out down below. Again, hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this video. We got the watch party coming up. Flyers taking on the Predators on February 11th. Join me here on YouTube for that, and I'll talk to you all again soon.